Needles. Needle is the most important tool that you would need while hand sewing. The needle that you would need for sewing differs based on the application. If you are unaware of the type of needle that you use, it may very well fail the purpose for which you did the sewing. At the end of this session, you will be able to identify a needle and its parts, identify different types of needles and its applications, hold and use needles for sewing. Hand sewing needles are used in all types of hand sewing. The needle has three parts, namely point, stem, and eyes. Points are sharp and eye is smooth polished. Hand sewing needles are available in varying sizes with varying points. For hand sewing, select medium length needles with a short oval eye. There are many sewing needles available in the market, but you need to get the ones best suited to your sewing project for the best results. Now let us look at the two different types of needles: crewel needles and straw and milliner. Crewel needles have a long oval eye and are therefore easily threaded. They come in a variety of sizes from 1 to 12. Crewel needles with number 1 to 5 can be classified as thick-sized, 6 to 9 can be classified as medium-sized, and 10 to 12 can be classified as thin-sized. The most suitable size for general hand sewing is crewel number 9. Crewels are also used for embroidery work. Crewel needles come in many varieties, each having different uses. Choose a thin needle for thin, lightweight fabric like chiffon. Use medium-sized needle for medium-weight fabric and heavy fabric like cambric and twill. Sometimes, thick needles may be required for heavy fabric if the weave is very dense or tight like drill. Thick needles can be used for loose weaves which can either be of medium weight or heavy like linen and jute. Straw, also known as milliner, is of the same shape as that of the sharp needle but longer in size. Straw and milliner is useful for basting, pleating or gathering, and millinery work. Let's review the best practices recommended by experts on the usage of needles. Select the right needle based on the type of hand stitches. Use only sharp needles for fabrics with tight weave. Use blunt needle for loose weaves, mostly in embroidery. After use, the needles need to be stored for future use. Let's now see the recommended way of storing needles. The paper used in needle packages is a special paper to prevent the needles from rusting. Therefore, it is wise to store the needles in the package. And also you can keep the needles in a metal or plastic case. Pin cushions are also available to hold needles temporarily, but they are not recommended for storage purposes because being made of either cotton or sponge, they attract more moisture and the needles can easily get rusty. When storing needles, make sure that they are clean and not left dirty. If needles are dusty, they can attract moisture, so always keep the needles dust and dirt free. Now let's watch the right method of using a needle. While sewing, hold the needle at its stem between your thumb and the forefinger. Let the point of the needle be directed away from you. As you sew, you will push the blunt eye end of the needle with the middle finger. Protect your middle finger with a thimble. It is also important to keep in mind the safety aspects while handling needles. Always keep needles out of the reach of children. Never pin needles onto the clothes that you are wearing, even if it is temporarily. Never hold needles in your mouth. To hold the needle temporarily, it is safe to use a pin cushion. This way you can always find the needle easily whenever you need it. When picking up a needle, don't pick it up from the sharp end. Doing so, you may injure your finger. You may pick it up from the eye end or the stem of the needle. If you ever need to give somebody a needle, never give it with the sharp end pointing towards the person. If careless, this could injure the person. So always give the needle with the eye end directed towards the other person. When sewing, make sure you pull the needle in such a way that the needle point is away from hurting you or somebody else in the close vicinity. So always watch the needle point and be alert where it is. There are also chances of hurting somebody else if the thread is too long, so make sure to keep the standard length. Even though the eye of the needle is blunt, it still has the capacity to pierce the middle finger, which is used to push the needle while sewing. So protect your middle finger with a thimble. With that, we've come to the end of this session. Before we conclude, let's recall what we have learned in this session. A needle has three parts, namely point, stem, and eye. There are two types of needles, crewel needles and straw and milliner. Depending on size, it has multiple applications. Needles can be stored in the paper package, metal and plastic boxes. As you sew, push the blunt eye end of the needle with the middle finger. Safety has to be observed while handling needles to prevent accidents. You have now learnt all about needle and its applications. Take our next session to learn about thread and its applications.